moments in my life. I've done my best in life to live as little as possible. I know that sounds sad, but I think about it like alchemy. The love I have will be traded equally for pain. Is love worth the pain? Most of the time, it isn't. But sometimes, somebody comes along who deserves every bit of love you have. I willingly gave my heart to play, and I'll cherish our 20 plus years together. And for this, I welcome with open arms. It comes in waves, and I take each one in stride. 6 was running again. Something inside of it was banging against the door inside, like fists, loud, desperate. I opened it. It was empty. No towels, nothing, just a faint burning smell and a warm trail of water pooling onto the floor. I don't scare easy, but I called my sister at 3 a.m. that night. I told her that I was thinking of settling everything as is. 2 days before I had someone lined up to come appraise the property, I found a box of receipts and logs in the storage closet, handwritten, going all the way back to 1978. My uncle had recorded every incident that had ever occurred in the laundromat. Mostly boring stuff, but near the back was a page titled "The Fire, October 13th, 1983. I didn't know about the fire. Apparently a local woman, single mom, worked nights, had fallen asleep waiting for her clothes to dry. Her 5-year-old daughter was with her. The wiring caught fire in the back. The place went up fast. They only ever found the mother. The girl was presumed dead, though her remains were never located. The report ended with 26 the manufacturer claims they never made a model matching its description. I think Uncle Ray knew about the weirdness. I think he kept the laundromat running because it kept something contained, like it was a prison cell that only worked if people were still using his machines, meaning in quarters and cycles of time. I think the girl never left, or if she did, something else took her place. I often see the driver's seat sitting. I'm never surprised, but sometimes when I open it, I see that burned towel back inside. It's the same one, or how it gets in there. Hardly time to get rid of this thing, but from what I've read, I think Uncle Ray tried that already. Tempted to keep things exactly as they are. I already inherited this laundromat I didn't want. I don't want to inherit bad luck by messing things up, changing things. So, I guess it just stays for now. This happened when I was about 14. It was me, my best friend Hannah, and 2 other girls from school, Rachel and Kim. We were having a typical Friday night sleepover at Hannah's house. Her parents were upstairs, but mostly left us alone. So naturally, we thought we were invincible. At some point, the conversation drifted into scary stuff. You know, ghost stories, Bloody Mary, Ouija boards. Anna said she read online about doing a seance without an actual board, just candles, a chant, and focus. We all thought that it would be hilarious to try. We gathered in her basement, because of course the basement is the creepiest place you can pick. There were old boxes down there, a laundry machine, and those pull string lights that flicker when you yank them. Anna set up a circle of stuff too. But that's just